What excitement. So I invite you to take a moment as we do our land and social justice acknowledgements. The land upon which this church sits was stewarded by the Haudenosaunee people. It is our obligation to hold this land as holy and sacred and to be the present stewards of that land, at the same time acknowledging all that took place for our Native Americans and to make sure that we raise up and create equity and justice. For our social justice acknowledgement, as you use social justice as part of our principles, it's part of our covenant, it's part of how we live our lives in spirit. And so we acknowledge that we use our voice, our presence, and our vote to make sure that those that are marginalized in society have their voice raised up, and that we work always, again, for equity and inclusion. And now I call you to just take time to be present, to take in our sanctuary, which today is beautifully bathed in sunlight, and it's highlighting lots of different corners and areas. And just take a moment to let yourself be fully present here as we begin to go into our worship. The opening words I'd like to share with you this morning come from Meister Eckhart. It is called, "For All That Is Good in Our Lives." May we whisper thank you for all that is good in our lives. Thank you. May we shout thank you for the abundance of blessings. Thank you. May we feel thank you, thank you, thank you, deep within our hearts and around us right now. May we be thankful down to our bones for this time together. May we take the time to feed each other, take care of each other, appreciate and trust each other, and say thank you. It is the only prayer you will ever need. And these are the words of Meister Eckhart to start us this morning. And so we are going to light our chalice. You will find our chalice lighting words in your order of service. And as I light this morning, let's all read those words together. Okay, no starting the church on fire. That would be too much for today. May the light we now kindle inspire us to use our powers to heal and not to harm, to help and not to hinder, to bless and not to curse, and to serve you, Spirit of freedom. Unfortunately, I was late getting information, so Erica just printed up the general, but Patty and I were speaking. Patty, what hymn are we going to do this morning?
Well, I was going to go with what she sent me afterwards.
Okay.
It was 402. The only thing I don't know whether you want to go at 120. I think we need to go a bit slower.
We need to go slower?
Yeah.
All right, we'll do our best. How's that? So I invite you to open your hymnals to 420, excuse me.
From
you I receive, to you I give. 402, I'm sorry, wrong one. We live.
One more time?
Yeah, how about 3 times through?
Okay.
Okay, so 402. You I receive, to you I give. Together we share, and from this we live. From you I receive, to you I give. Together we share, and from this we live. Okay, thank you so much. Please be seated. And so it is our custom to share our joys, our sorrows, and our concerns with one another. We do that by lighting a candle, or in remembrance, putting a stone into the vase. Thank you, Teresa, for lighting the first candle this morning, so I didn't have to go back and forth. I'm going to light this for all of the hostages and prisoners who have been released, and the hope for peace in the Middle East. And now I invite you to come forward and share your joys, sorrows, and concerns.
I have a sorrow. 20 years ago, one of my staff embezzled from me, and it took me a while to figure out who did it. And I met a man who became my practice consultant. And for the last 20 years, we've talked every 2 weeks for an hour. So I've probably spent more time with him on the phone than I have with most people. I've only met him twice. He went into the hospital for a cardiac condition and has been on a respirator the last 2 weeks, and he died on Thanksgiving Day. So I feel really sad. He was more than just a consultant. After 20 years, we talked about a lot of different things that weren't related to the business. And I felt like I knew him really well, and I will miss him. His name was Bob Stevens.
I want to express gratitude for God giving me another chance to get sobriety, and also some sorrows when I have this person owes me this money, and he's been telling me one thing after another about when he gonna pay me. Yeah, I just want to speak on that. That's all I got.
Well, this is neither a joy or sorrow, really. It's just something funny again. So, as we all know, we had lots of excitement down at the bridge. And as soon as somebody who called to see if I was okay said, well, it was two people in the car, I knew it wasn't terrorists, because no self-respecting terrorist would, blow two people up at the same time. But I do thank all of the people that did call and text and ask me if, I had been affected by it. And the only effect by it was then my brother couldn't cross over for Thanksgiving. Even though he could have, he thought, oh my gosh, if we get stuck on one of the bridges, then I won't be able to get back for work in time the next day. So then my friend Alice called me, and she said, well, her son-in-law and daughter couldn't come, and could I come and make their day joyful? Well, I don't know if I did or not. Then the following day, Al came over so that we could practice, because we've lined up 5 really good paying gigs around Christmas time. And I have this rocking chair. I was originally setting him on one of the wooden chairs that belongs to the church with the dinette set upstairs. He weighs, well, quite a bit. And the poor chair was squeaking and squawking so much, I thought, oh my gosh, I can't have him break the chair. So I put him in my rocking chair. It broke. So then a friend of mine said he'd pick it up and take it home and try to fix it for me. So I set it out on the side of the sidewalk to have it picked up. And then the next morning I looked out, oh, good, it's gone. I went to get the mail yesterday, and on my way back I noticed it sitting on the cement steps out there. Alongside of it, a great big pile of pennies. So then I texted Bill. I said, Bill, you know those metal chairs that fold downstairs in the basement? Do you think that they would hold a considerable amount of weight? And he assured me they probably would. So if anybody wonders why there's a rocking chair sitting out there on the steps, that is why.
So I have two joys. Recently, we just got a new cat named Rory, and she's super cute. And also, my third album came out on the 25th. So, thank you.
Well, I got a joy from computer land up here. I'm not on camera, but just wanted to say thank you again to Peter and Betsy for being the coordinators and the main workers on a wonderful Thanksgiving dinner that we had here Thursday. And it went off really well, and that was primarily because of their tremendous efforts. So just thanks to them, very, very much appreciated. It really was a nice event.
For all the joys, for the sorrows and the concerns, those that have been expressed and those that are held in hearts and minds. To all of these, we give our best intentions, our best energy, men and women. So I want to share with you for our spiritual practice moment. This is from Mike Johnson. Mike is a ongoing contributor to UU World. He also works with UU Worship from UUA. And Mike wrote this. It's called A Thanks Grieving Reflection. I want to tell you about my bicycle. The frame is a sparkly kind of blue, and it has pink handlebar tape. And guess what color the wheels are? Lime green. I love my bicycle. Now suppose this was your bicycle, and suppose one day you biked to school and totally forgot to lock your bike when you got there. And then, when it was time to leave, you went outside to get on your bike, and no bike. It was stolen. Bah! Okay, so you had to get a ride home and figure out how to get to school from now on. And then, in art class the next week, someone brings in a sculpture of a turkey they made. It has a sparkly blue body made of pieces of metal, a big round tail with a lime green circle around it, pink feet curving out from underneath it, and a bicycle seat for a head. In fact, the whole thing is made from a bicycle. And you realize it's your bicycle. Your former, stolen, cut up into pieces bicycle. But before you can say anything, your classmates are cheering, and the principal decides to make the sculpture the new school mascot. And she institutes a new school holiday called Turkey Creativity Day. And every year from now on, everybody gets to spend a whole day making art. Now, nothing against creativity, but this is kind of a nightmare. And I'm telling you this story because it's basically the story of Thanksgiving, except Thanksgiving is worse. I've started writing and saying thanks grieving instead of Thanksgiving, because in popular culture, we've come to see Thanksgiving as a commemoration of a friendly feast shared by Native Americans and European settlers. But this is like the Turkey Creativity Day, a really nice idea that covers up theft and treachery. Although both Native American and Europeans had feasts expressing gratitude during harvest time, the Europeans who arrived on this continent were incredibly destructive to Native American communities. The Wampano man, often celebrated as a friend of the Pilgrims, Tis Quantum, spoke English because traders had enslaved him and forcibly taken him to England. When he finally escaped and made his way back to his home, His community had all died of smallpox that his captors had left behind. He was friendly to the pilgrims who moved into the land of his people because none of his own people were left. He was able to find work with the pilgrims as a translator, and he helped them to negotiate treaties. But as we know, treaties between European settlers and the indigenous residents of America have not been honored by the new arrivals. And although there's some evidence of a shared meal between Europeans and Wapano people in 1621, the holiday may actually have started a few decades later, in May of 1637, when English and Dutch mercenaries, lost my place, attacked the Pequot tribe. They killed over 700 people. Hang on one second, just want to make sure the lift works. Okay, we're good. They killed over 700 people. And the next day, the governor of the Massachusetts Bay Colony declared a day of Thanksgiving in celebration. Since then, various governors and presidents have called for days of Thanksgiving to commemorate various events. But it didn't get formalized into an annual holiday until Abraham Lincoln chose a Thursday in November in 1863 to celebrate Civil War victories. Now, nothing against gratitude, but the legacy of Thanksgiving is a nightmare. The 400-year-old story that we've heard about harmony between people of different backgrounds just isn't true. The United American Indians of New England have commemorated a national day of mourning every fourth Thursday in November. They write, Thanksgiving Day is a reminder of the genocide of millions of Native people, the theft of Native lands, and the relentless assault on Native culture. Participants in the National Day of Mourning honor Native ancestors and the struggles of Native people to survive today. It is a day of remembrance and spiritual connection, as well as a protest of the racism and oppression which Native Americans continue to experience. It may be uncomfortable to hear this as you prepare for Thanksgiving, or as we're remembering Thanksgiving in our case, because gratitude is essential to human life. But grief is essential for healing our history of violence. It is really hard to be thankful and sorrowful at the same time, but also this is life. Sometimes joy and sorrow come together. And these are the words of the essay of Mike Johnson in Thanks Grieving Reflection. And so at this time, we take up our offertory, which goes to serve the good works of this church. Please join me in singing Spirit of Life. You'll find it inside our order of service. Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me. Beautiful. Max, stand up for a second. In case you didn't hear it, Max has a new instrument. It's called an ocarina, and he's going to play on it later. And he was accompanying with Patty. They'd worked that out. So if you thought you heard little flute music, you did. That was Max. He was anxious to share that instrument with you all today, too. So thank you, Max. Thank you, Patty, for that. Thanks and giving. As UUs, we are nothing if not people who embrace and both. We hold complex and contrary ideals as dearly as a child holds their lovey. The celebration of the colonization of the land America and the false narrative of friendship between native people and land thefts and invaders is sometimes balanced with the celebration of food, family, friends, harvest, and thanks. Thanks and giving. It's better than thanks and taking. But first, and I've shared this in the past, but I always have to do it each year, our own Thanksgiving story about Thanksgiving, because I always call it a gay UU holiday. Now, I know I share that, but I have to tell you why. So the first Thanksgiving really didn't happen at Plymouth Rock, but rather in Provincetown, Massachusetts, at the tip of Cape Cod. Provincetown is known as a gay mecca, and many LGBTQ people have made a journey there to enjoy its liberal, cultural, entertainment, and food offerings. As the Pilgrims touched base there first, while on the Mayflower, they engaged in something that we would come to know as the Mayflower Compact. This was a collective democratic exercise in how, once they set foot on land, that they would govern and be connected together. And so, with the compact in place, they stepped foot into Provincetown. But of course, Provincetown, for those who know it, is a pretty sandy, rocky, not really a place where you do a lot of harvesting or planting. So they traveled further on and eventually made their way to Plymouth. But we, as UUs, can hold this holiday as an example, because the Mayflower Compact is very similar to how we create covenant, how we as a faith and as congregations come together and create a compact of understanding, a compact of being together, and a way to be in the world. Now, there's many stories that the Mayflower held primarily Puritans, but that's not true either. And on that boat were many individuals who would go forward and in the New England areas become the first plantings of Universalists, as well as other individuals. So on Thanksgiving, even though it's past, as we're remembering, we can hold it as a gay UU holiday. That's my yearly public service about our connections. And we don't have a lot of holidays except sometimes for ingathering or flower ceremony or others. So yeah, let's hold Thanksgiving as one of those for those intentions, not necessarily the historical. Now me, I've always loved Thanksgiving, especially over Christmas, because it had family, food, football, and no requirement of gifts. As I've gotten older, it requires either buying supplies or cooking them or bringing sides of pies. But it's still a pretty chill holiday. It takes nothing to give thanks. But giving and having it received, that can be tricky. Our wish to give is not always easily accepted by those that are receiving. We are skeptical. What's behind this? What does it mean? If I accept this, am I obligated to do the same? Nothing seems simple. Or is it? 1621, the Plymouth colonists and the Wampanoag did share an autumn harvest feast. It's what is used as the basis for today's aspect of Thanksgiving. And again, as mentioned, Lincoln declared Thanksgiving Day, but it was in hopes of reconciling a country in the throes of civil war. It's important in 2023 to realize we are still a country at war. internally and on foreign lands. We have not reconciled so many small things that now the big things that could have been resolved with a thank you before and I'm sorry have given the way that peace is harder and harder to come by. We sometimes have trouble crossing the street to thank neighbors, almost as much as our politicians have trouble crossing the aisle to give thankful support. And in both, thanks and giving. There is a place for both, and it is in us, and it can be very simple. This is a Thanksgiving prayer that Howard Thurman, who was an African-American theologian, preacher, and activist, wrote. He said, "Today I make my sacrament of thanksgiving. I begin with the simple things of my days: fresh air to breathe, cool water to drink, the taste of food, the protection of houses and clothes, the comforts of home. For all these, I make an act of thanksgiving this day. I bring to mind all the warmth of humankind that I have known, my mother's arms, the strength of my father, the playmates of my childhood, the wonderful stories brought to me from the lives of many who talked of days gone by when fairies and giants and all kinds of magic held sway. The tears I have shed, the tears I have seen, the excitement of laughter and the twinkle in the eye, with its reminder that life is good. For all of these, I make an act of thanksgiving this day." And those are the words of, oops, I'm losing my way as I go along. Those are the words of Howard Thurman. So, thanks and giving are inside each of us, like every line of that poem by Reverend Thurman. And it's unique to each of us, depending on how we experience giving and receiving. But it is there. The calendar may say that it's time for giving thanks, but that internal desire to give and to say thanks when receiving can happen on any day and every day. Beloved poet Mary Oliver asks us, "What will you do with your one wild and precious life?" We've heard that line so many times. I want to ask, to whom and where will you give thanks? Or put another way, how will you receive a thanks that's given? Researcher John Amodio has a few theories on why receiving is so hard for us. His first theory is that we have built up a defense against intimacy, that in a world that prioritizes surface level relationships and instant connection, we actually fear intimacy. His second theory is about letting go of control. Giving a benefit or giving gratitude is a way of gaining control. And his third theory is that we have a fear of there being strings attached to a benefit. That, he surmises, is why we have a tremendous inability to receive gratitude from others. UU writer Chris Shamira wrote an essay called "Why Receiving Gratitude is Hard," and I've abbreviated that just a little bit for our purposes here. What places in our lives are we denying others of their giving? What places in our lives are we unable to receive authentic gifts? How good would it feel if we opened our hearts and received from others? Think about that coworker who is always asking you to grab a coffee. Think about that friend who always texts, asking if you need anything while you're sick at home. What would happen if you just accepted their generosity and acknowledged it's just their way of caring? And that is the abbreviated part of Chris Shamira's words. I think that thanks and giving is a cyclic kind of thing. We're all involved in it. It comes round and round. Just like the hymn that we sang, "From you I receive, to you I give." And in our UU fashion, that is exactly what we do. Not receiving or giving out of obligation or duty, but simply as that cycle of being present and human with each other. And so, this is Talkback. It's an opportunity for you to share your thoughts.
I didn't hear you say anything about this, so I think you're expressing something by having not stated it. But you don't give any obligation to the deity or to the supernatural for your Thanksgiving. Is that an accurate read on what you were saying? Yes, that you neglected to, yeah. Well, I just was making that observation, and I believe strongly that Thanksgiving can be just as vibrant as somebody that doesn't believe in God or any kind of supernatural. It's a different activity completely.
It's not a religious holiday. Thanks.
Yeah.
There we go. When the other mic is on, I wanted to make sure I didn't have the feedback, but I'll turn it back on. We get that buzz. Anybody on Zoom that wants to speak on anything?
I would like to say something.
Sure.
So this is Desi from New York. So it's really interesting, the idea of receiving thanks. Or I'm thinking about when I was a young nurse and I would take care of these patients and they were at the end of their lives, and how by giving the family members around the loved ones chores or tasks to do, which, involved their accepting my assignments, made them feel useful to the person who was trying to leave this world. And that whole idea of like accepting something, like even if you don't need it or you don't want it, it's a way of honoring the giver and, and accepting them into your life at a level of that, where they're presenting themselves to you to try to make a connection. So lots of times, even now that I'm an old woman, when someone tries to give me something or says something to me, I will try my best to accept it, to honor the giver. I think that's what the point I'm trying to make.
Excellent point. Thank you so much for sharing that. Oops, sorry, I've got feedback. Anyone else? Leave it on? Okay, all right. I think that Peter has the mic.
I think mine is mostly for information purposes. I clean second grade classrooms, and I get curious sometimes when I stop cleaning between breaks, and these classrooms, they got some interesting books. They have some of the Pilgrims and Native Americans, and And I've always wondered, I've always heard that it was almost sound like the Pilgrims turned on the Native Americans, and I found out that really wasn't true. But I'm not defending the Pilgrims either, because they had their motives too. But the real actions or things they were doing against the Native Americans, the worst of it got 1 or 2 generations after the Pilgrims, plus all the other people from European people coming over here. And they were the ones that really started hurting the Native Americans.
Yep.
So it took about 1 generation to 2 generations, and then it started happening big time.
Yep. It was a wave that built and built.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I believe at the time, with the Native Americans and the Pilgrims, when they had that first Thanksgiving, they really did have a lot of fun. I read about the different games they played, and it was like really fascinating. And it was almost felt like I was there from this book I was reading.
Oh, cool.
It was really a short book, though. It said everything pretty quickly, so I didn't take no more than 5-10 minutes out of my cleaning time. But I get curious sometimes. And the interesting thing too, turkey at that time was not, and I didn't want to say this Thanksgiving night, turkey was not the main course of the meal. It was there. They shot and killed wild turkey, deer, and believe it or not, the main course, I couldn't believe it when I found this out, was squid.
I knew
Or
fish,
not
but-
squid. It was, what was it? No, it kind of looked like snake. Eels. It was eels.
Oh, yeah.
Eel was the main course. How they caught them, I don't know, but I found that out.
Yeah.
What's that?
That's-
Nets. Oh, okay. Yeah. Patty says that they caught them probably by nets. So that makes sense.
Sure. Cape Cod Bay has a ton of, I knew fish.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah,
Interesting.
fish was in there too. So it was a
Interesting.
feast of a little bit of everything.
Yeah. Nice. Thank you. Thank you for reminding us of that and taking us back to 2nd grade. Lots of good books.
This has really not too much to do with your topic, although I enjoyed it super lots. And when Paul stood up, I remembered what I was going to do. So when I came home on Thanksgiving Day, I hadn't done my own dishes, so I went on downstairs and there was like a tiny little mess, not too bad, a bit of laundry to do. And I thought, oh, thank God, they had a really, really good time. So while I was down there doing the dishes, I turned around on the counter and there's this bottle of firewater. Bill had bought some Southern Comfort. My intentions was to bring it up today. Did you get this for me?
That's good. Any other sharing that anyone wishes to do, or talk back, or adding in information, or even challenging information, because that's okay too. Well, I want to thank everyone. Oops, am I on? There we go. Yeah, I thought I accidentally. Okay. Okay, I think I'm on. So I want to thank everyone for your comments and for your thoughts. As a community, it's important where we share connections, but I always say this, and I mean it sincerely, that when you do this as well, it's ministering to me, and for that, I am grateful to you. So we are going to do our closing hymn, which is what?
69.
69. So
What
if you
a
could find,
number.
if you could find hymn 69 and rise in body or spirit as you be willing or able, and we shall sing this beautiful song.
Give
Give thanks for the corn and the weeds that are reaped, for the labor well done, and for barns that are heaped, for the sun and the dew and the sweet honeycomb, the rose and the song and the harvest brought home. Give thanks for the mills and the farms of our land, for craft and strength in the work of our hands, for the beauty our artists and poets have wrought, for the hope and affection our friendships have brought. Give thanks for the homes that with kindness are blessed, but seasons of plenty and well-deserved rest, for our country extending from sea unto sea, for waves that have made it a land of the free. Please be seated. Thank you, Patty. That was good. It is time for announcements. If anyone has any announcements that are for the good of the congregation, please do. Betsy has something.
After the joys and the peace of Thanksgiving, we enter the crazy season of Christmas. And if anybody is interested in decorating the church, we have decorations, and all we need is some people to help, and so we'd have to set a time that's convenient and a day. So if you see me downstairs later or sometime, call me or something, and we'll set it up and see if we can't get enough people to make the job easy. Thank you.
Sure. Any other announcements? I'll share right before service, Patty and I were talking, because I'll be here on December 24th, which is Christmas Eve morning, and we are going to do the traditional UU lessons and carols. We did this last year, except we had to do it by Zoom because of that big storm that hit. So we're prepared if we have to do that again, but our intention is to be in person. And if you've never been to lessons and carols, it is 7 different carols or songs and 7 different reflections or essays or poems that go along with that. So I do hope that we will see you in December and that you come for that tradition. Our closing words today come from Stephen Schick. I just love this. I think I use it most, but it just works perfect. It's called Finding Thanksgiving, and it is his prayer. Spirit of life, God of love, let me write a thanksgiving on my heart. In clean lines, I will inscribe what pleases me. A warm autumn day, a quickly spreading smile on a child's face, the still warm touch of an aging loved one. Then I will write the names of all who have been with me at moments of great discernment. Let gratitude pour from my soul as I recall their gifts of time, patience, and unconditional love. I will draw empty lines for those whom I will never know, who gave needed gifts to my mentors. In this world of endless distractions and complications, I pray for the wisdom to humble myself in gratitude for these gifts beyond measure. Help me learn to thankfully give them to others. And those are the words in Finding Thanksgiving of UU writer Stephen Schick. I invite you to recite with me as we do our chalice extinguishing. We extinguish this chalice, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Together again.
What do you two got planned for postlude?
Yeah, what number is it?
16, but could you come closer to me and I can hear you better? And then the mic will pick you up too. So, well, kind of, I don't know, not at 104. 'Tis a gift to be simple, 'tis a gift to be free, 'tis a gift to come down turning we come round right.
Ooh, that was beautiful.
What, Sue, you know what? I can bring down my new keyboard, and if that other girl is coming, and Max, we can have lots of fun.
I think we're going to on the 24th. Thank you. And they didn't even rehearse really. They just came up with that. So thank you for music. Thank you for taking care of our video. Thank you all for being here today. Please join downstairs for fellowship, and go Bills. See you in December.